here with Sisterhood Check-in, where we're going to be talking about something amazing today. We're going to be talking about today's topic is you have something to contribute to your generation. Yes, you do. Each and every one of us have something that God has put on the inside of us that allow us that has, like I always say, like Miles Monroe said, we're a answer to somebody's question, right? And we always tend to, as women, to compare ourselves to other people. We always look at somebody else and look at, how their makeup is, how they look. If they have a business, we look at them doing better than us, and we never sometimes tend to take the time to see what areas in our own life that we need to fix compared to what we feel like. Because most of the time, when we're looking at flaws in our life, or we're looking at something that doesn't seem to add up to somebody, it's because there's something that's on the inside of us that we feel like is not complete, right? And just because there may be some areas of your life where you feel like you need to have some changes or to do better at, that doesn't necessarily mean you're that far off. That means everybody in their life is on a different is on a different is in a different lane, right? And in a different time zone. So you might be feeling like, well, my life is not going as fast as this person over here. I've been in business the same amount of years as they are, and they're doing this, and I'm doing this, and it just doesn't seem like my life is going in a direction as fast as this person over here that's in another lane. And I want you to think about the fact that everybody's journey is different, right? Everybody has different lanes and different things that they have to go to get to their destination. The most important thing that I want you to realize is that your journey is what matters. It's what you do on that journey to your destination is what matters. It's something I used to always tell my kids all the time, is that don't focus so much on just the future in and of itself, but focus on the journey and what's happening in you as you're going through life. Because if you don't focus on the things that's happening in you, the things that you need to change on the inside, you're going to get caught up with the things that's happening around you. You're going to get discouraged because you're going to be looking at the next person and you're going to be comparing your life to their life. Everyone is on a journey to learn, right? Everybody is on a journey to learn, create, and become something unique. It's an individual experience that isn't impacted by what others are doing or accomplishing. Your journey is for you. So whatever is happening in your life in this season in your life, pay attention, right? If there's some things that you need to work on, and you look at your life, if anything, you should be comparing your life now to maybe what it was like maybe last month or last year. That's what I do. I don't really like to compare myself with other people because it can be discouraging. You could look at people who started the same time you did, and then you could be like, dang, it just seems like they're a lot further than me, when everybody's journey is different, right? They may be on a different time frame. They may be going in a different direction. It may be a longer journey. Your journey is different, right? Comparing yourself to others is a game that just can't be won. Forget it. It's not going to work, right? There are a lot of people in the world, right? That's always that's going to look better than you, that's going to be doing better than you, that's going to be ahead of their game, better than you, right? They're going to have a better car, better house. You can't concern yourself with that, right? Everybody's life is uniquely designed for them and they're alone. There's no way to compete with 8 billion people on the earth. It's impossible. You will get lost trying to compare yourself to 8 billion people who have different journeys, and some of them it may appear that they're on the same journey, but really everybody's journey is uniquely different, and it's uniquely different based on the plan of God that he has for your life. So, we're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about how to look to your strengths, right? Comparisons tend to focus on our weakness. Most of the time, when we're comparing ourselves, we're not comparing what we're good at when it comes to the next person. We're comparing things that we're not good at. We look at our weaknesses and think, well, I'm not as good as her or him. I'm not doing enough of this. So we tend to compare weaknesses and focus on that when it comes to comparing. What we usually compare are our shortcomings against others. And what I want you to do is I want you to embrace your strengths and be proud of the things that you have accomplished. Don't look at, oh, well, I've only done one thing or two things. Embrace what you have accomplished. If you got your high school diploma, that's something to celebrate. If during the pandemic you wrote your first book like I did, that's something to celebrate. If during the pandemic you lost your job and you were able to create your own business, guess what? As something to celebrate, right? And I want you to embrace your strengths and be proud, because I want you to learn how to use your strengths to your advantage. And you may be asking, well, how can I use my strength to my advantage, right? If I'm focusing on my weakness. Because when you think about it, believe it or not, when you begin to look at the things that you did overcome, you start doing it a lot more often, it'll become more easy to kind of overlook the things or not focus on the things that you feel like you're not good at. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, if I know that I'm not good at speaking on a particular subject, right? I'll look at what I am good at. And I'll say, well, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. Yeah, I can get better at this, but I'm really good at this. So when I start to focus on what I am good at, it doesn't then what the things that I need to change or get better at doesn't overwhelm my mind, right? So it doesn't mean that I don't think about them sometimes, but it doesn't overwhelm me. It doesn't get me to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just say, you know what? I'm not that great in this area over here, but you know what? Over time, I'm going to get better if I just keep practicing, if I just keep at it and don't give up. And that's the thing, guys. If you keep going and don't give up, anything that you do with practice, you'll get better at. I promise you that. When I look at even when I started Sisterhood Check-in a year and a half ago, right? Oh my gosh, my broadcasts were horrible in the beginning, right? And I started to think like, man, there's some days I just felt like I didn't want to do this anymore. And I felt like, you know what, this is just, I had a vision in my head of how I wanted the show to go, how I wanted the backgrounds to look, how I wanted the commercials to go, but yet how they were going was not in the beginning, not quite like how I had planned it to go, right? So it was discouraging, it was frustrating. But I had to realize that I had to go through different stepping stones to get to where I am now. And I'm still not at my finished product. I believe that each and every day I'm going to get better and better at what I do, because as long as I'm living, just like Bob Proctor said, if you're not growing, then you're dying. If what you're doing in your life is not causing you to grow, then you're dying. And I intend on making progress in every area of my life. So, let's list the things that you do have. Before we're going to talk about Lydia, but before we do that, let's talk about the things that you do have, right? Comparisons usually highlight the things that we lack. It's much more productive to think about the things that you do have, right? Your mood, your frame of mind will be more positive. Like I said before, you'll be in a better position to compete and succeed, right? If you're focusing on what you are good at, then it's almost like it's like I said, it's not like you won't think about the things that you feel like you lack, but it won't be your center focus, right? People only let you see the things that they want you to see. I'm going to say that again. People only let you see the things that they want you to see. So sometimes when you're comparing yourself to somebody, you're looking at somebody on social media and you thinking, oh, they must got it all together. Oh, they this, but everybody brings their best representative, right? In the beginning or in the midst of something. Because nobody wants to come up and say, hey, I'm busted up, disgusted, or I've got this going on. Everybody brings their best representative, right? So you could be comparing yourself to somebody who is nowhere near on the level where you are. And you could be beating yourself up and say, oh my gosh, I just wish things would have been different. If I would have just only had this, if I just only had that, then I would be better. No, You don't know what people are doing behind closed doors. You don't know what their life is like behind closed doors. You might be looking at a couple and you might be looking at them and saying, man, I wish, oh, that's a relationship. Hashtag relationship goals. Oh, I want to be just like them, and have no idea. She might be a woman that he might be disrespecting her behind closed doors. He might be treating her like him like dirt. She might be treating him like dirt. There might be cheating going on. There could be a lot of stuff going on. You might be looking at somebody over here who started a business, and you might be thinking, oh, they just look like they ain't had to do no work, like like money just fell in their pocket. But you don't see that they may have worked. Sorry, my nose is itching, guys. You might see that you may not have seen that they worked 2-3 jobs just to be able to get and have to build up the confidence, right, to leave their job to be able to do what it is that they're doing. All you see is the external. You just see where they are now. You don't see their journey, right? And most people don't talk about their journey. Most people talk about their end and their beginning, right? And when they talk about their beginning, it's usually short and sweet. When they talk about their end, it's usually elongated, and it's usually all the wonderful highlights, but they never tell you the middle. They never tell you how many times you had to sacrifice to get to where you are. So don't get caught up into what you see, because you don't know what people go through to get to where they are. I remember when I first started in entrepreneurship. I tell you a little story. And when I started entrepreneurship, and I remember I was living in an apartment, a little small apartment, 2 bedrooms, and I had 4 kids, 2 bedrooms. And I had a vision even back then to encourage young teenage girls and young women. But I knew I had so many things around my life that, that would, if the average person would look at me, they would say, she ain't got her life together. But the reality was, the things that were on the inside of me didn't require me to be in a perfect situation. I just had to be perfect at what I did. Right. And impactful for what I did. And once I learned that it didn't really matter where I lived, or what I had or didn't have, I had to zone in and focus on what God put on the inside of me, and begin to do my best to make a difference where I was. Because anybody can make a difference when they're around a whole bunch of people. Everybody can, put on their best act, right? But the real story and the real trial is, what do you like when nobody's looking? What do you like when nobody is around? Are you the same person, or are you just putting on the entrepreneur hat, when you feel like you're around other entrepreneurs? Are you really exhibiting the attributes of an entrepreneur? Entrepreneurs are resourceful, right? There are times you can be tight squeezed in some stuff, but I'm telling you, entrepreneurs are resourceful. We will find a way, right? We will find a way to make things work. There's so many times I didn't know what in the world I was going to do. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I just don't know what I'm going to do. I got to do this, I got to do that. But I started back, because back to what I said, you look at the things you do know how to do. So I started to tap into some of the things, my resources. And then I started to realize, yeah, you know what? If I need to do this, then this is what I need to do. And what it did was, it trained my muscle to kind of push past my circumstance. So instead of me sitting back and pouting and saying, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Just like Miles Monroe says, sometimes crisis really reveal where you are. And so there are many times that I've had to sit back and say, okay, Nadira, this is what you have to face, and this is where you have to get resourceful. You have to exercise your muscle. You have to exercise the entrepreneur muscle, and you got to put it together. It's easy to go run and say, you know what? I'm gonna get a job and I'm gonna just put this to the side. And there are some situations where sometimes, depending on the scenario, you may have to do that. But entrepreneurship is hard, right? And when I say it's hard, meaning that sometimes you have to make some really tough decisions, right? You have to really make tough decisions, and really, like, make some major sacrifices, right? And so these are things that you don't know, that you just look at things outwardly and you just think, oh, they just got it all together. They just did it like this. I never went to school. Sorry, guys, my nose is just really itchy. I never went to school for graphic arts design. I never went to school for media broadcast. I never went to school to become a journalist. Never even had a desire to become a media mogul or anything, right? But what happened is, my purpose and the things that I was operating and focusing towards, it required me to expand past where I was. So though I might have felt like, oh, I'm just good at this, I had to be resourceful. So that means I had to tap into other gifts and talents that I didn't even know that I had, right? And then I had to yield in and say, okay, you know what? I've got to, it just, things just begin to work as I continue to work it, right? And that's what the Bible says, the hand of the diligent, right, make rich. The more you diligent, the more, if you're diligent at what you do, you're going to get better at it. So you don't have to compare yourself to somebody else. You could just look at where you were and say, you know what, this is where I was a year ago. Now this is where I am now. I can compare and see that I've grown in the areas of my skill set, or have grown in the area of my mind. I've invested into my knowledge base. I've invested so that I can use my resources and create a better situation and circumstance that I was in, right? They don't let you see, people don't let you see their new BMW and their vacations houses. People, they'll let you see their BMWs, their vacation pictures from Maui. They'll show you all these pictures, right? But you'll never see the tears and fights in the bedroom, right? Or the verbal abuse that they take from anybody in their family, right? Keep in mind that social media is primarily used for showing the good rather than telling the bad. So sometimes it's easy to look at a person and be like, "Oh man, they just doing this." I was on TikTok and this I was going live, and this young lady, she must have been about, I want to say, 19 years old. And she said, she popped onto my live, and she said, and I was just talking, I was just testing out, use it, because I'm like, man, you really find out if you really know what you know when you go live on TikTok, because it's easy to post a video, edit it a few times, and get it up there until you get to where you want. But oh boy, you go live in the area of your expertise. You try to go live, and you will really see whether or not if you really got the stuff you think you made of, because they are going to call you on the carpet, right? So this 19-year-old called me. She goes, you know what, Miss Nadira? She said, I'm struggling with having issues with self-esteem. She said, I used to get bullied a lot when I was in high school. And she said, and the bullying didn't stop even when I got out of high school. And this young lady was beautiful. And I'm like, bullied about what? And she said, and everybody used to bully me because of my hair. And she said, and I used to get so embarrassed because I used to always be like, oh my God. So what happened was, there's two things I always say. You're always in control of your response, and you're always, your perspective and your response. So here she was, upset because people were upset at her because of her hair, right? So what did that do? She could have given up, folded her hands in, and say, you know what, this is it, right? But no, that's not what she did. She created her own hairline products, right? To help her hair. Whatever the products was, I don't know what her hair looked like before, but when I seen her hair looked pretty awesome to me. It was curly, it looked healthy, it was shining, it just looked like it was really healthy. And but to me, I'm looking like, you had issue, you were being bullied about your hair looks wonderful. But I didn't know her story behind her smile. I didn't know her story behind her hair. Her hair looked great. But in that instance, it caused her to start her own product line, right? And so she says, Nadira, I need your help. I want to know, how do I use my story of what I went through to help sell my products? So I begin to talk to her and share some insight about how she can brand her story with her products and stuff like that. And we wound up going for at least like 30-45 minutes, and she had a pen and paper. And I always love it when people are around you and they don't, and they take what you say they take it seriously, and they don't let your words fall to the ground, and they're there. I remember one of my this young guy, he was at least 5 or 6 years in me. And he used to always tell me, Nadira, when you ever around somebody great, you always make sure you have pen and paper, because you never want them to feel like they're wasting their words. You always want them to feel like you're paying attention. I never forgot that. And I wasn't even completely in business yet. But here it is. You got a younger guy that was in his 20s. He had to be like 26 or something like that. I never forgot that. And I always carried that with me. So the fact that she took a pen and paper and wanted to write down some of the things that I may say that may be considered nuggets to her, that meant a lot. And I was like, wow, that really, just the fact that she, was grabbing hold to everything that I said, it just really just made me feel like, wow, I'm making an impact in somebody's life. Sometimes you may be expecting your impact to be here, and then you go on another platform in another area in another city, and you make a impact there. You don't have to worry about numbers with impacting. All you have to do is just make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do to the best of your ability, right? Somebody's life is going to be impacted. Somebody's going to eat off of what you say and grow from it, right? Our lives are filled with habits. Some of them are harmful. Some of them are poor mental habits are restrictive. It's like going through life with an emergency brake on. Ooh, just think about that. Just think about going through life and you got the emergency brake on, right? The You feel like you not really going at your full speed that you can go. You ever drive in a car and had the brake on? I've done that a couple times. Well, I've gotten in the car, and which is why I don't really put the emergency brake on that much anymore, because I don't live on a hill, so I don't need to, right? Now, if I'm getting my tire changed or something like that, then yeah, I'll put my emergency brake on. But if you've ever driven with your emergency brake on, you know how it can be pretty annoying, right? To be able to drive, because you feel like, dang, I'm just not going fast enough. And you feel like I'm driving, I just can't quite get the speed that I know I can get to, right? Because no, you can't. And the reason why you can't is because you have the brakes on. You can't really operate the way you want to because your brakes are on, right? That's how some of our lives are. Some of our lives are restrictive, right? And so we're going trying to go at a speed that we don't that our life is the things, our habits and stuff are slowing us down. Sometimes we're not really good um stewards, right? Over our finances. So what happens is we suffer in the certain areas. And I have had that scenario happen to me many times, right? Where something may come up and you'd be like, dang, I can't get to you, like that break, like, I'm trying to get over here, but something is always happening. Or you might have that stinking thinking. You might have something where, you get used to a certain mindset, that limiting belief mindset. And all of a sudden you like that break. You're not going as fast. You see yourself going. It's funny because your vision is always the same. You can't go no farther than your beliefs, right? So if your brakes are on and you're like, dang, I see myself going, I want to go faster, but I just can't, right? It's because some of our habits are harmful. So we have to check and look at, instead of comparing ourselves to other people, we need to compare and see, what are the habits that we're forming? What are some of the habits that we're forming that are causing us to feel like we're not getting the best out of our life, right? Comparing yourself to others is limiting and self-defeating. No one can expect to compare favorably to the vast number of people in the world. Make an effort to limit your comparisons to your own recent past. So if you want to do some comparison, compare yourself to your life to what you've done in the past, right? Are you making progress, or are you backsliding, right? If you continue to enhance the areas that are important to you, your life is likely to be fulfilling and exciting. You don't have Most of the time we suffer depression or we suffer from anxiety because we're looking at our life, we're seeing where we want to be, and we're looking at where we are, and it gets to be discouraging. But if you make the necessary changes that's needed, you'll be surprised. You'll start heading in a direction that'll be fulfilling and exciting. I'm no longer trying to run the race no more. I'm through with those days. I used to always focus on trying to get to a location fast. I got to get there fast because I always felt like I was behind. I always looked at people around me and was like, oh, they here and I'm here. Oh my gosh, I got to hurry up and I got to catch up. And then I realized this is a journey. What am I in a rush for? They are on their lane, they're in their lane, and guess what? I'm in my lane. So I'm going to go at the lane. I'm going to go at the pace that's befitting for me, because if I go at a pace that's befitting for me, then guess what? I don't have to be always looking to the left, looking to the right. You just think about it. When you run in a race and you look at somebody on the left of you and you look at somebody on the right of you, you can't even focus, and you normally trip over your own foot because you're so busy looking at somebody else's lane. Stay in your lane and look at what God is doing in your life. Focus on what he's doing in your life. And you will be amazed that you won't even have time to look over here at this person. You won't even have time to compare yourself to that person because you'll be so focused on trying to improve your personal life, right? You'll be like, I don't have time to, this sister over here got this, or, I don't got time to look at that. That's great. That's woohoo. You rejoice with them that rejoice. Yeah, that's awesome. You going good. Woo! Root for them, right? But then stay in your lane and continue to do what you do. Ever since I've been doing Sisterhood Checkin, I've been so tempted to compare my broadcast to so many different things. I've been so tempted to do so many things just out of mere comparison to somebody else, not because I felt like it was in alignment with what God called me to do. So I had to go back to the drawing board and say, you know what? Why am I doing what I'm doing? I know why I'm doing it. And, so that's what's important. I got to stop focusing on my imperfections, because every time I think about what I'm imperfect at, it starts to hinder me in my mind from fully functioning the way I know I can function. And so those are just some of the things that I've learned. And we're going to take a quick break. After we take this break, we're going to go into talking about Lydia. And I know some of you may wonder, like, who is Lydia? Some of you may already know who Lydia is in the Bible. And some of us might be saying, who is Lydia? Yeah, I want to know. I ain't never heard of her. Well, we're going to talk about some women in the Bible that had some things going on in their life, right? But we're going to look at their perspective and how they dealt with the things in their life. And Lydia is one of them that we're going to talk about. We're also going to talk about the widow woman, the woman whose oil, who the prophet Elijah told her to go rent some vessels from her neighbors, and he filled their vessels up with oil, and then told her to go, and she had to go borrow vessels from a neighbor. He filled it up with oil and then told her to go sell them, and she was able to take care of herself and her family. And we don't know for how long, because the Bible doesn't indicate that. But these are just some things I want to help encourage you on. If you're a mom, if you are deciding that, if you are still working on your job, and you're saying, man, Nadira, that I want to be that woman. I want to be able to start my own business, but I can't. I work a 9-to-5 and I don't have time because I have children. I have young children, and it's hard for me to juggle work and business and take care of my children. Well, I'm going to give you some examples of some women that were facing some of the same things that you're facing. And we're going to talk about how they overcame them. So we'll be right back after this. There's seasons that our gifts operate and flow in. There's seasons. And if you miss your season or your moment, your gift may not be no longer useful. Because if he called a generation to ask a question or to need something in a specific season, and he birthed you for that season, you're useless if you don't operate in your season.
Listen, Nadira, listen. Yeah, you're doing it again. Now that you do it.
Right, that's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Ayy, coming down like precipitation. I ain't never met a limitation. Hater plotting my elimination. Gotta go to Google for the information. I'm a superstar, so I gotta shine. Top dollar be the bottom line. Bottom feeding niggas out of line. Turn your heart rate. Bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Ayy, coming down like precipitation. I ain't never met a limitation. Hater plotting my elimination. Gotta go to Google for the information. I'm a superstar, so I gotta shine. Top dollar.
Stop. I want it, I got it. 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 I want it, I got it.
Nadira, author, life, and business coach, founder of the Becoming a Woman of Proverbs Wisdom and Entrepreneur Academy. Thanks so much for stopping by our site. Make sure you check out our on-demand courses. And if you have any questions or you would like to book a call with me, make sure you click the link below and we'll go ahead and get you started on the way to becoming the best version of who you were ordained to be. Are you a woman in need of wisdom? Do you sometimes battle with separating who you are now versus who you feel like you ought to be? Do you question God's plan for your life? Is there a sense of uncertainty in the areas of choosing healthy relationships? Hi, I'm Nadira, CEO and founder of the Becoming a Woman of Proverbs Wisdom Academy. We offer classes and webinars in the area of life and business so that you can be equipped to succeed in the marketplace. For enrollment or for more information, please visit us at www.womenofproverbscoaching.com. And I'll see you on the inside. And we are back here with Sisterhood Checkin. I am your author and coach, Nadira Lewis. And if you are watching us for the first time, you've missed out on a treat. We talked about the dangers of comparing yourself with other people and not looking, more so looking at your past and looking at the things that are happening in your own life versus looking at people around you. And so this segment, in our final segment, I'm going to talk about Lydia. Now, Lydia, very little is said about Lydia in the Bible. As a matter of fact, there's only 2 mentions of her in scripture, and that's in Acts 16, where we find a record of her conversation and subsequent to her baptism, right? Acts chapter 16, verses 11 through 15. And we're going to read that. It says, so setting sail from Troas, we made a direct voyage to Samothrace, and the following day to Neapolis, and from there to Philippi, which is the leading city of the district of Macedonia and a Roman colony. We remained in this city some days. And hold on, let me pull up the rest of it because I had pulled up a section of it. Some days. Where was that colony? We remained in the city some days, and on the Sabbath day we went outside to the gate to the riverside, where we supposed there was a place of prayer, and we sat down and spoke to the woman who had come together. One who heard us was a woman named Lydia. Lydia was from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple goods. You hear that? She was a seller, which means she was an entrepreneur, guys. She was a seller of purple goods, and she was a worshiper of God, right? But here's the most important thing. It says the Lord opened her heart to pay attention to what was said by Paul. And then afterwards, she was baptized, and her whole household as well. She urged, saying, if you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay. And she prevailed among us. Now, let's talk about Lydia. I mean, when we think about, especially us as women, sometimes we feel like the things that we do are irrelevant, right? But the little things that you do to impact people in your life is huge, right? Whether you allow people to come and stay in your home, whether you feed another family, whether you give somebody a ride somewhere, you have too much that you could be doing with your own life that you don't have the time to focus on what somebody else is doing in their life. When you focus on when we look at Lydia, for example, Lydia was an entrepreneur and she was a servant and she loved the Lord, right? That is what is written about her. What is going to be written about you? What is your life going to portray? Right? Here we see Lydia was an entrepreneur. She was a seller of purple goods, right? And she loved the Lord, right? And everything that she did, she was so impacted. Her heart was opened by Paul's message, right? Of the gospel, that she invited him in her home. Well, when you start to look at, remember what I was saying in the first segment, when you focus on the things that you know how to do, right, and focus on things that God is giving you to do, you don't have time to really think about what somebody else is doing because you're so focused on your life and impacting people that God has put on the inside of you, right? So here we talk about Lydia. She was a worshiper of God, and Paul found her. She was honoring the Sabbath, which means she was likely a Jew, right? The account of Lydia's conversation says that she was gathered with a group of other women on the Sabbath at a place of prayer near the river outside of Philippi. This thing really like touched me because I was thinking about when I was in the shelter, when I lived in the shelter, and this story is in my book. You know, if you haven't gotten my book, What Happened to Me, How Did I Get Here, guys? I was trying to see if I had my book close by so I could show it to you. Um, I must have it downstairs. Okay. But you guys go to my website and get my book. It tells about my story, about my journey and how I got to where I am right now. So this brings me back. This reminds me, put me in remembrance of when I was in a shelter, and here I was around all these groups of women, and though each of us come from different backgrounds and we all were facing the same type of situation, we were able to gather together and pray. We were able to gather together and worship, and we found peace and comfort in that. And when I think of Lydia here, this woman, this she reminds me of me, because I was that person, and I'm still that person. It's a little different now with COVID. I don't have people in and out of my house like that anymore, because of COVID, and things have just changed, and I'm in a different season in my life. But I did have that season where I did take people into my home and allowed them to stay with me, and I did feed families, and I did, have women Bible studies, and then me and my husband, we had home Bible studies, and we served people, and we were entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur, and so when I read that, I thought, wow, you know I never thought that here it is. If I needed an example to be encouraged, Lydia was my example. Another woman that we're going to talk about. Oh, and it says, after she believed, Lydia was baptized along with the rest of her household. Now, it doesn't say her household was her husband or children. It just refers to her household. So the only thing we have left to assume is that this is her family, right? Or these could be servants that she included, that maybe she was close to, that she considered as family. Well, after Lydia's conversion and baptism, she insisted that Paul and his friends come to stay in her home if they judged her to be a believer in the Lord, right? One thing I've learned, that if you feel like you're a good person and you feel like you're doing something out of the kindness of your heart for somebody, people are going to be able to look at you and can tell your genuineness. They're not going to, be concerned. I used to always be concerned, well, what they going to think, my house, I don't have this and I don't have that. But when you are authentic and you are genuine and you are focused on what God has called, you don't worry about those things over time. You start to realize that, wait a minute, my focus is staying in my lane and being a blessing and doing whatever it is that God called me to do. And when you think like that, then you tend to not focus on a lot of the imperfections about you, because you realize, you know what? People are going to talk about you, whether you are good or bad, whether you're the best or you're not. People, if you're doing good, they're going to talk about you. If you're doing not so great, they're going to talk about you. If you're doing bad, they're going to really talk about you. So I have learned that sometimes you have to just shift your focus on where God is taking you, and focus on what you're doing in your life. Focus on the changes that are taking place in your mind and your heart, so that you don't get easily distracted by people's opinions about what they think, or even allow your own mind to get distracted by what somebody else thinks, right? That's a horrible way to live, right? The missionaries did indeed judge Lydia to be a true believer, and they stayed at her home while in Philippi. If you are impacting people, no matter what level you're doing it, I don't care. You don't have to be at a certain level to impact people. If you are, I was in a shelter and I let people stay in my room, in my shelter, and they had their own room. But sometimes when people, sometimes I was in my lane. I felt like my lane was, I had the ability to encourage women, right? Even though I was discouraged, I still would be able to encourage them. So I would have ladies come to my room, and sometimes we'd be up all night long. And sometimes they would just stay the night in my room, because I had created an atmosphere. And that was something that I realized that was something that was positive that I did know. I always been able to create an atmosphere wherever I go, where people always felt like they felt comfortable being around me, right? Because I didn't judge them. I wasn't looking at, I wasn't trying to do or be anything. I was just trying to be there to be a blessing to them in any way that I could, right? So those things didn't really matter to me, right? And so when I would look at, and then one day I remember I got called to the office, and they were saying to me, they said the district, the lady I think she was like the director or whatever. And she was like, "Yeah, I'm calling you. You know why I'm calling you downstairs?" And I'm like, "No, I really don't." And so she was like, "Well, I'm calling because a lot of people were complaining that you had all these girls in your room." And I'm thinking, this is a shelter. What difference does it make? We all have our own rooms, and we mingle with one another in each other's room. Who cares? Like, but there's always somebody there to left behind, just like Job. There's always somebody left to tell the story, right? And so I said, yeah, I do have women that are there in the room with us. We're praying, we're worshiping, we're just laughing, we're joking. And it was like, oh, well, you're too loud. You got to turn it down. You can't be praying, like you can't be doing all that other stuff. If you do that, then we're gonna kick you out. And I'm thinking, like, what? And I started to get a little bit discouraged, and I started to feel like, you know what, maybe I just ought not to do it. But I was looking at how many lives I was impacting right there in the shelter. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to stay in my lane, and I'm going to continue to encourage. I'm just going to just have to find a different type of way. We got to be a little more quieter when we do it. And so that's what you have to do. You have to look at where you are. You may not be able to have people in your house. Maybe, especially now with COVID, it's difficult to take people off the street nowadays, because there's so much stuff going on. Now even in Atlanta nowadays, if you feed the homeless, they literally will arrest you just for feeding the homeless. Like, it's crazy. But you have to start wherever you are. If you are not able to bring people in your house, because times are different, I know. If you can't invite people into your home and take them off the street, there's things you can do. You can go over and help another mother, that may be a single mother, that may be tired. Maybe she needs some time off. You can go over there and help her out with her kids. Hey, pick up her kids for the weekend. Hey, let me take your kid for a day. Let me take your kid for a couple of hours and give you a break, right? That's staying in your lane. That's not comparing yourself, looking at it, oh, well, don't nobody help me. Why do I go over there? Don't nobody help me. But when you start to do other things, when you start to look at what you do have the ability to do for the next person, you won't have a whole lot of time to focus on what you don't have, or what's not good enough in your life, because you have spent most of your time trying to impact other people. Right. So we're going to talk about one other person, and then we're going to get ready to wrap it up. It's funny because every time I do this show, I'm always thinking like, oh my God, am I going to be able to talk that long? What am I going to say? I don't know. But I enjoy what I do. So what I do is not work. So after about 20 minutes, I'm usually really comfortable and usually in my lane, right? Because this is what I do. This is a part of who I am, right? This is not something that I'm shooting from the hip from. It no matter how long I've been doing this show, I still get nervous when I start. I still trip over my words. I still get scared that I'm gonna say something the wrong way. I still get worried that my camera's gonna go off. I still get worried that I'm gonna disappear from the screen for like 10 minutes and not know exactly when I'm coming back. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times that I've done that. And Yolanda says, be the help that you need and watch you get the help that you needed. Absolutely, Yolanda. That is so true. And that's exactly what I did. I never really looked at, and that's just something that sometimes that's a bad thing for me. And I've had to exercise wisdom over time, because there's been a lot of times I just didn't use any wisdom. If you needed help, I just jumped in no matter what, even if I suffered or didn't, I just did it because there's a good part of me that feel like when you are at a low point yourself, it's easier to help other people who are at a low point, because I think that's the only time that you don't really compare, because you feel like, well, they're in the same place as me, so I understand how that feels. So you tend to be more generous when you're kind of going through the same thing and you see another person go through it. It's just something I was observed in my own time. But the next person I wanted to talk about, which this story really blessed me a lot. And this is about when the prophet Elijah, right? When the prophet Elijah actually went to the widow, was talking to the widow woman, and the widow woman was concerned her husband had died, right? And she was concerned that that the creditors was going to come to her door, and she was concerned about how she's going to pay her bills. I mean, how many of us widows, single moms have had concern where you like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? But yet, through something as simple as wisdom, from the prophet, giving her word and basically telling her to go borrow vessels, right? Some of us just need wisdom from God. We just need God to give us one opportunity, right? We just need one opportunity just to get through, right? Just one more day. God, I need one more opportunity. I need to maximize the opportunities that I have so that I can make it through, right? The prophet told her to go and borrow vessels from her neighbors, right? She went and borrowed vessels, and he filled them up with oil until the vessels were all gone. So once the vessels were all gone, the Bible says that the oil stopped, right? And then he told her to go sell them. So she was resourceful, right? She went down in history as being a woman that was resourceful, right? She went and sold them, and the Bible says she was able to take care of her and she was able to live. We don't know how long or for what time. There's a lot of speculation behind it. But I think the key thing for us to remember out of that circumstance was not necessarily how long it lasted her, but to let us know that that the Bible says, if in James 1, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, right? There's sometimes we just need wisdom from God. We just need wisdom in our finances, wisdom on how to deal with things. And I know some of you may be saying, oh, well, I'm doing everything I can. It's just not enough. Especially now through this COVID thing, I lost my job. I'm not able to have the amount of money that I did before COVID, and that's fine. And I have some, and I always you might see it advertised and stuff on my commercials, but I have different opportunities. If you're a woman and you need work, if you need to work from home, for whatever reason, make sure you go to my website, ibgcareers.com, and you can work from home doing customer service. If you want something more on an entrepreneurial base, then I have different opportunities. You can go to my website, womanofproverbscoaching.com, and I can show you different ways to generate income, because most of the time that's really what we need is wisdom. Right. Yolanda says, I often ask God for wisdom, strategy, and strength. See, a lot of times God will give us the wisdom, right? And he'll put people in place to give us a strategy, right? Most of the time, we just need the strength to operate on it. God is not lacking in giving us wisdom. Sometimes we don't even have to ask for it. He just places it in the midst of us, right? We just have to ask God for the strength to act on the opportunities that he placed before us. I have recently found a way to be able to generate income passively. And I'm going to be talking about that also in the crypto world. And I just haven't, there's some things I'm working on to get those things into place so that I can be able to do it and be able to share. I know a lot of you have followed me and have been a part of the social earn, and we were all kind of waiting for the results for that, and it just didn't work out the way we wanted to. But don't feel bad. I have some really great news that I want to share with you. So make sure that you stay with me. I have some great news that is there's another program that is similar to Social Earn, but you definitely don't have to wait to get approved to do anything. You actually have access to you're able to withdraw daily, or you can compound it, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. You can compound it, or you can, either way, you can collect the money daily. So it's amazing. So I can't wait to be able to share that with you. And I'm going to go over that next week. So make sure you tune in on next Friday. I'm going to go over the details on how that program, or there's actually two of them, two programs work that can actually help you if you're that widow woman, or if you're that single mom, or if you're that mom that says, I just need a little more, right? I just need a little more to do what I need to do. I'm going to be able to show you some opportunities where you can be able to generate more income and be able to take care of your family from now until God calls you home. So thank you so much, guys, for just sitting with me throughout Sisterhood Checkin. I know we didn't have a guest today, but that is okay. Some days we don't have guests, and you know what? It's okay, because then I get to spend time with you and I get to share with you my heart and my thoughts and the things that I have on my mind. So this is good for me, because this gets me out of my comfort zone, because it's always easy to talk when there's somebody on the other side listening. But it is stretching my muscle when I have to continue to talk. Hello, how are you? Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. It's always a stretch when you have to sit before people and really kind of just give an encouraging word and give them resources, because again, we're resourceful, right? God made women, made us resourceful, right? And so it's always a pleasure to be able to come before you and encourage you, give you words of wisdom, and give you an opportunity. Yeah, Yolanda says, yeah, you were the host and the guest. Yeah, thank you, Yolanda. Yes, I'm the host and the guest today, which is okay. So, thank you, guys. I just want to tell you, I appreciate you guys for sticking with me. Those of you that watch Sisterhood Checkin every week, thank you so much. Make sure you click like and share it with your friends, and let them know all the wonderful things that we're doing here at Sisterhood Checkin. Share it, share. And if you want to purchase my book, make sure you go to my website, www.womanofproverbscoaching.com, when you can read about my book, What Happened to Me, How Did I Get Here, where I talk and share about my life story, and I talk about all the things that I've gone through, the different mindsets that I had to go through, because trust me, there are some mindsets that we have to go through to get from one place to another. We have to always be growing. Like I said, if we're not growing, we're dying. So if you're not taking time and spend the time in your growth, or like how Chris Gloss said, if you don't have a certain amount of money to invest in something else, then you need to invest in yourself. So some of us, if you're not where you want to be, invest in your knowledge, invest in your knowledge base, so that you can be more equipped to be able to function in the area of your gifting, and you're not literally in a place where you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what I'm going. If you start to continue to read, I love to read. I have all kinds of books over here that I read to kind of increase my knowledge base in the area of my expertise, so that I can be better, because I know I want to always be growing, and you ought to be doing the same thing. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for those that commented and engaged. I appreciate it so much. And I will make sure you watch us this Sunday for Dinner with the Coaches with my amazing visionary coach Thomas Taylor the third. You guys, we have an amazing time. Whether we have guests or not, we have an amazing time. I tell you, my nose has been itching all night long. I don't know if it's just the makeup that I have on or what, but it's been causing my nose to itch. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on Sunday. IBG Careers is looking for customer service representatives needed to service their customers from home. If you're interested, please apply at www.ibgcareers.com.
Let's work. I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again. I wake again. I pray the Lord that I. Let's work. Yo.
You know, there's seasons in that our gifts operate and flow in. There's seasons. And if you miss your season or your moment, your gift may not be no longer useful. Because if he called a generation to ask a question or to need something in a specific season, and he birthed you for that season, you're useless if you don't operate in your season.
Listen, Nadira, listen. Yeah, you doing it again. You doing it again. That's what you doing.
Right, that's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Hey, coming down like precipitation. I ain't never met a limitation. Hate plotting my elimination. Gotta go to Google for the information. I'm a superstar, so I gotta shine. Top dollar be the bottom line. Bottom feeding niggas out of line. Turn your heart rate. Bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Hey, coming down like precipitation. I ain't never met a limitation. Hate plotting my elimination. Gotta go to Google for the information. I'm a superstar, so I gotta shine. Top dollar be the bottom line.
Stop. I want it. I got it. 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 I want it. I got it.